everybody, and welcome to our very first webinar for 2016. Today we're here to talk about the goal-setting mistakes, and I'm really excited about talking mistakes because I think we all want to start our 2016 right, and sometimes we make little fuck-ups and mess-ups along the way. And I think it's really important that we talk about those mistakes and those fuck-ups because we are all human and we don't have to do every single step of this journey perfectly in order to still live a good and heartful life, and one where you achieve the things that you want to achieve. And sometimes you may not, and that's okay because you can still return back to forgiveness and still carry on this path. So let's talk about goals, and let's talk about life, and let's talk about business as real humans here. Let's talk about it not about doing everything perfectly because that's not the point. I remember somebody asking me a couple of days ago, how do I make sure that I start 2016 off perfectly? I need to make sure these first days are just, that's how I'm going to make sure that the rest of the year is going to be bonza. And that's not really the point. And you don't have to, because every single step of the way you are going to come across days and minutes and moments where you step in shit, you have an argument, you don't do the things that you want to have done that day. And it's a continual process of forgiving yourself, forgiving each other, and adjusting your path to get back on path. Grant, do you want to share anything about that?
Yeah, I found a great Charlie Munger quote this week, just right on that spot. Munger is like the unsung hero of Warren Buffett's empire. And he said, invest in a business any fool can run because someday a fool will. If it can't stand a little mismanagement, it's not much of a business. I think there's just some reality to, and especially as we talk about goals, if your standard is I'm gonna follow these 10 rules. Well, we actually have bonus rules, but I'm gonna follow these rules, or I'm not gonna even try to do my goals. It's no, you're probably gonna fall somewhere in the middle, and that's awesome. If you can do 7 of these things, or even 5, if last year you did 2 or 0 or none, and you start in this direction, life has room for a little bit of mismanagement. It's just about getting up and getting back on the horse. And I thought that was a great thing. Warren and the Berkshire Hathaway folks don't want to be in businesses where it's either it works or if there's a little bit of error, it just blows up. They want things that have some resilience. And I think that we have resilience. And so that's a great place to kind of come into this, is to say, hey, I want 2016 to be a great year. I want it to be a better year. I'd like it to be my best year. But the only way we're actually going to get there is with some generosity to ourselves and working with ourselves and with our circumstances, not against them.
It's so true. And I always kind of love the idea of there's a book called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And I recommend everybody read it because it's just fascinating. Because one of the things that they say about in unsuccessful teams is when people don't engage in conflict, when they don't engage in intentionally being okay with mistakes, because you need to build really durable relationships where the thing that you're most orientated towards is making those goals come true and making those dreams come true and building really robust relationships with yourself and with the people that you work with. So that is the beginning of the conversation about goal-setting mistakes, that these are some mistakes that you could make. It's okay if you make them. If you can spot them in the distance coming at you, maybe you can kind of circumvent it. Or if you find yourself in the middle of it and wondering why isn't working, you're like, oh, this is mistake number 11. This is why it's not working, and you can adjust course. So let's get started. Why should you learn from us? So we have created together a $2 million a year company. This has been my business for many years. I've been blogging for 11 years. I'm also a best-selling business and self-help author. And Grant, before joining our team a year ago, has a background in sales and management of non-profit tech and finance companies. And once we'd met, we knew that we both had values that were very much in common and very aligned, and that if we worked together, we could achieve them even faster and also undergo a really wonderful and healthy process of healing our shit as we did it. Let's talk about what you're going to get out of this webinar. It's exactly what to do if you want to make sure that you achieve your goals in 2016. We're going to be talking about the mistakes that we all can make when setting goals and trying to make them come true, and how to make sure that you avoid the procrastination potholes in 2016 so you don't get stuck in a rut and you just stay on track to making your business and your life goals come true. I'm very much a devotee of goals. I've been using them for the last 8 or 9 years, but with a great amount of success in my own life and business. They're really the things that have supercharged my business growth and really ensured that my family has lived, our best life possible. So we've been on a 5-year traveling holiday, basically, while our kids were still young, and so we could live anywhere we wanted and spend as much time with them as possible. And in the meantime, I've also managed to achieve some pretty significant career goals and business goals and philanthropy goals and all of those wonderful things. I created the workbooks originally in 2009. Heading into 2010, I wanted to create something that was beautiful and inspiring for me to write my goals down. So I spent some time and hand illustrated my own goals workbook, and I thought, it'd be really cute if I just scanned this in and sold it as an ebook, and if maybe 10 people bought it, that would be so fun, because then they'd be able to write their goals down as well. That year, I think I sold over 1,000, and every year since then we have about doubled or tripled our sales each year. So I think this year, once we sell out, we will have sold, I think, about 45,000 copies of the workbook, which is fantabulous. I love knowing that there's so many amazing women out there in the world who are making their goals come true, and it makes me so very, very happy. So here's some results for you to get from this hour. First, I just wanted to share with you that multitasking is very much a fallacy. Make sure that you've got your pen and paper in hand, as Grant was sharing. Give yourself actionables. One of the things that I like to do is write down a capital A and circle it whenever there's something that I need to do. So when I'm taking notes, sometimes I just like to make dot points or stars or information points. And then there's things that are actually to-do items, things that need to happen in order to be implemented. So writing that capital A with a circle around it at the start of a sentence, it means that when I'm going back through the notes, it's really easy for me to see what I need to actually undertake and action that, and then be able to cross that out. I would also highly recommend that you commit to a deadline and implement in the next one day. So write down all of these and think about the systems that you can implement in order to ensure that you don't make these mistakes. And even buddy up with an accountability partner. Head on over to our Facebook group, which is the 2016 Create Your Shining Year Workbookers group. That's facebook.com/group/shining year. I think we've got nearly 10,000 people in there, and they're all just so passionate and spirited and beautiful and really getting their goals. So buddy up with people in there and go, okay, this is my goal for the next day. What's your goal for the next day? And be like a get shit done buddy with them. That is absolutely life-changing. If you commit to doing that, you can make huge miracles happen in your life.
Let's put a mistake number one. We could have written these like actual things that you don't want to do, but we decided to flip it around and make it a little bit more ridiculous, right? Just to sort of make it so it's really you wouldn't do that. So mistake number one is don't take stock of where you've been and what worked and what didn't. So I sometimes say to Leonie loves clarity. Sometimes I love vagueness, and I say what happens in vagueness stays in vagueness. This is true of life as well, in fact, right? So if you had no goals last year and you want no goals this year, you're doing great. Just keep the clouds low on that. Let the fog settle and just press on, brother. Whatever it is that you are pushing through, I don't know when it ends, but you don't either. So keep going. It really helps. If you want to know, if you're going to start marking time from here forward, it really helps to come out of the fog and say, all right, let's just tell the truth. Where are we? What's going on?
Yeah. Because what I notice is, I've kind of been studying people for the last 10 years or so and really seeing what created success for them and what created stagnation, what drove people forward and helped them have momentum, and what kind of fell flat in the water. And I noticed that the people who were kind of like gung-ho, they're like, fuck last year, I'm not even thinking about last year, I don't even discuss what happened last year, I'm just going to keep on going forward and not look back. It means that you're missing out on a huge piece of reflection and really, really important information. Because when you do actually take stock and take review of what happened, what worked and what didn't, it means that you're harvesting out of that year of your life, the really important lessons and experiences of that. It means that you don't just go, oh, fuck that year. There was some good, there was some bad. I'm just going to forget the whole bit of it. It's actually really, really important for your life and for your business for you to look back and take stock of it and really get the gems out of it. I mean, it happened to you for a reason, and you can either choose to ignore all of those things and not grow as a person, not gain clarity at all, or you can do the intentional work of looking back at it and learning what you need to learn from. And it's why I created in the workbooks in both the life business and the life workbook and the business workbook, you go through and actually do a 2015 completion process first. And, it asks you questions and leads you very much through that process of working out what worked and what didn't. Because you need that as the base grounding for you to project forward and actually stop the same stupid shit happening again, because you need to have more awareness around these things. So clarity really breeds results. And I can't even recommend it highly enough. Yes, it's fucking boring sometimes to do, but if you don't have clarity about the things that didn't work in your life, if you don't have clarity around your finances in your business, or the things that were really, really hard in the last year, or the things that really, really worked, then you're missing out on this massive data mine of really useful information that can supercharge your growth going forward. I talk so often to business people, and when I say, what was your income last year? They're like, I don't know. They don't know what their expenses were. They don't know their highest selling products. They don't know their lowest reaping products as well, the ones that may take the most huge amount of time, but yield like 20% of the results. It's like Pareto's rule. You really have to look at what 20% of your actions create 80% of the results, and also what 20% of your activities create 80% of your burden without necessarily adding to your profit. So that's why we do the completion circle in the workbooks. If you're not going to use the workbook, that's completely fine. But really take lists and just, even if you're just answering questions like what worked, what didn't, what you want to be different, what you learned from it, and, looking back at the finances in your business as well. Of course, if you're doing the life and business workbooks, you go much, much more deeper into detail on that, but still so bloody important. So don't make this mistake. I know that everybody's like, I don't really feel like doing that. Congratulations, you just made mistake number one. And it's a mistake that does not assist you in your process of healing and growing and getting your goals. So mistake number 1. Let's enjoy the beauty of mistake number 2 now.
And it's a doozy. Because, you know, if you, some people come out of the fog and they go through that and then they're like, that was so bad, I don't even want to plan for the future. So mistake number 2 is don't bother setting goals and don't write them down.
Yeah.
Which those kind of go together, right? Because why would you write down goals you haven't set? So just forget the whole thing.
It's true. And I like to bring up the data on this. So this is a really handy dandy infographic pie chart of success and achievement. So 80% of people don't even think of goals. They don't, they might go, oh yeah, goals. Like it just doesn't even cross their mind that would be something important for them to do. 16% of people think of their goals. They go, oh yeah, so in 6 months I want to have dropped 360 kilos, and really, really useful kind of goals like that. Or I'm going to give up smoking, or I'm going to find a man, or a woman, or whatever. That's the extent of their goals. 4% of their goals, 4% of the population write down their goals, and 1%, just 1% of people write down their goals and regularly review them. It's not like they're just going to write down their goals and put it in a cupboard. And then maybe, a few years later find that people go, oh wow, what serendipity. All those things came true. Like, that's not how it works. It's the people who actually write down their goals and regularly review them in order to keep their actions aligned with their intentions. And it's those people that are among the highest achievers in society. These are the people who are the most successful academics, the most successful entrepreneurs and business owners and academics, like the whole kit and caboodle. It's the people who write down their goals and regularly review them. So you don't have to guess about what you need to do in order to achieve your goals. Like, this is the very simple process to ensure that happens for you. And this leads really nicely onto mistake number 3, which is don't regularly look at your goals and review your progress. I really love the quote that says a millionaire looks at their goals once a day and a billionaire looks at them twice. And that's why we actually, when we were thinking about this year, we try and make sure that we're creating lovely systems for everybody, to make sure that, how can we further support people to make sure that their goals come true? And what we came up with was the 2016 diary planner. So this is a weekly diary planner, and it makes sure that you keep on track with your goals every single day. It means that every single month you're doing a really thorough goals review process and monthly review process of what worked and what didn't. It supercharges your growth process so that you can have better clarity, and it makes sure that you set your financial goals for the month, financial goals for the week. It gives you a space for gratitude journaling. Like, these are all really, really important exercises. So the diary was a way that we could make sure that you don't make mistake number 3, which is writing your goals down in a workbook and then not doing anything with them. It's so important that the workbooks and the diary become like your best friends, your companions, your maps for the year ahead, so that you can stay so much more on target to achieve your goals. I should say as well, just in case you're wondering as well, yes, we will be taking live Q&A after this show. If you've got any questions, just write them down and we are so happy to answer them. We've allocated quite a lot of time to make sure that we can answer all of your questions. Grant, did you want to share anything more about mistake number 3?
Yeah, I was thinking about commitment and the fact that people, sometimes it just seems so far out of reach, what we're sort of thinking about. And so we think, well, I wouldn't want to commit to that because I don't know how I would make it happen. And so I won't actually turn that into a goal, and then I won't review and look at it, because maybe if I even did write it down at one point, it was sort of like a hit and run, like it was just kind of like, yeah, that's a star out there, but I'm not actually going to go for it. And I think part of the process, which we'll talk about some of the other mistakes as we go forward, but part of this process actually keeps you engaged with your goal. And if the landscape is changing, or you're changing, or the conditions that you were thinking about are changing, you know, you might have to update those. You might have to change them. And when you stay really closely connected with them, you're able to sort of say, well, I'm going to have to adjust this a little bit, but here's what that's going to look like, instead of just giving up the whole process. And once again, our goal is not to do something January 1st or in the first 15 days of January that lasts perfectly until the end of the year. Our goal is to engage a process that really lasts for the rest of our lives.
That's so true. One thing I wanted to say as well, in case it's coming up for people, is I think a lot of people think, well, if I'm successful and if I'm one of those goal getters, it means I'm going to sacrifice my life. It means that I'm going to sacrifice happiness, and it means that I'm sacrificing time with my family. It means that I'm sacrificing, you know, a really well-balanced life. And the research that Grant and I have undertaken, research that's documented in some fantastic books like Jim Collins's Good to Great and Great by Choice, when they're reviewing CEOs who've made the most amount of impact, what they've discovered is that those people they're not just winners in one part of their life, they're winners in every part of their life. They have successful marriages, you know, they have great relationships with their kids, they have really good work-life balance, because they are so, you know, they're so engaged with what they want out of life, is that they don't sacrifice one goal for the other. And, you know, Grant and I, it's why we do the life and business workbooks, and it's why we integrate within our company checks and balances to make sure that we're not sacrificing our joy, our happiness, our families, our marriages, you know, for one goal. You can have more than one goal, and you can have aspirations to be healthy and successful and vibrant in every area of your life, and that is doable, and that is possible, and it's proven that successful CEOs do that. So you can let go of that whole idea that you need to sacrifice a good life in order to attain your goals. That's a fallacy, and it's just not true at all. Maybe it's kind of one of those things, it's like sometimes there's really bad attitudes about people who are wealthy or successful, and sometimes when you're looking at those people, you go, oh, well, you know, they don't have a life or whatever. And it may not necessarily be based on true evidence of people that we know and love, because I can 100% tell you that every single one of my business women friends has a better work-life balance than most people in jobs. So we can just like drop those ideas that we can't achieve those goals without sacrificing our life in the process. Grant, do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think it's actually unlikely if it's not possible to set the goals and really pursue that and keep those things in mind and make goals in those areas as well and be successful through that means. I think it's actually less likely that you would haphazardly be successful. So it's possible that you could set goals and that you could do the work, and maybe that relationship still goes downhill, or maybe something still happens with, you know, your kids, and there's still some, you know, I mean, a lot of these are human issues, right? But in reality, the honesty and the commitment that's required to set goals and look at your life and determine the direction that you really want to go, and the effort that you're willing to invest there, seems like it's more likely to be successful than not. So even if some of those things still happen, there's still a reality there. But because of that reality could have happened in both cases. And in fact, you're probably more aware and more focused on the risk and reward and what you need to do in all areas, because you're focused that way, as opposed to just sort of like, once again, you're back in the fog. You know, you're not sure where that relationship is. You don't know exactly what's going on with that money or how this is all going to work out, but you basically don't have to look at it.
It's very true. And clarity breeds results. That's what I always like to say. The more you can get clear about how things are going, the more you have the capacity to be powerful in a situation and change its course. So, Grant, if you want to share now about mistake number 4. It's a goodie.
these are all coping techniques for the fearful, right? And so if you've gotten this far, you've looked at your life honestly, you've set some goals, you've written them down, and you plan to review them. This is like maybe one of your last places you can hide. So if your goal is to do all this but not really do it, mistake number 4 is for you.
That's so true. I love that.
To stay secretive about your goals. So maybe you've just bellied up to it and you've said, okay, last year was a terrible year. I didn't accomplish anything that I really wanted to do. I didn't even really set out to accomplish anything that I set out to accomplish because I didn't really own up to it. But this year, man, I've got it. I have these goals written down. I'm going to look at this sheet of paper. But my last holdout is to not tell anybody. I'd hate to have accountability. I'd rather have this be secretive. And if that's you, the opportunity for the avoidance strategy of your dreams is about to go by, because when you've done all this other work and then you bring it out into a larger group, it has a different kind of power, because now this isn't just a private sort of desire or hope or nudging that we might have inside. It actually has been spoken.
Yeah. Being made real into the world.
When you start to speak things, there's a power in that. And, I don't know that it's really mystical. It feels mystical sometimes because it's so dang repeatable. But I think the mysticism of it may be in your own head. I was just watching an episode of this show from Amazon, Mozart in the Jungle, and this the assistant to the conductor in this show, the conductor of the New York Times Symphony, says, "Do you think it could be psychosomatic?" And the conductor says, "Well, of course it's psychosomatic. Everything is. Everything happens in our minds. Is it?" So a piece of this is just the fact that you have put something into intention, and then you've told someone else, and there's all kinds of things that kick in then, right? You're going to come back and say, "Hey, how you doing on that?" And I'm going to just be frozen, what? I'm sorry I told you. You really start to move in that direction, and all kinds of things come to your assistance at that point.
It's very true. And so if you haven't got a place to be publicly accountable, or even if you do, I would really highly recommend heading on over to our free workbook groups, which accompany this process. We have nearly 10,000 people, and everybody's really actively involved in sharing their goals and getting publicly accountable with each other, and that's really, really powerful. I would also, if you are really intentional about wanting to see your goals manifest as fast as possible, I would highly recommend that you also create a face-to-face group as well. We've got a free guide that's coming out next week on creating a workbook group in your local area. Those can either be free or paid. We just want to see people creating their miracles together, because something really, really powerful happens when you have to turn up and be accountable for your dreams and to have them live outside of you, because then people go, "Hey, you said you were going to do this. How are you going with that?" And it means that you get seen, and so that there's much less potential for you to get stuck in your own shit.
Right?
So eloquent. So eloquent.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what happens. And I also think that one of the things that happens a lot of times, and I hear this often in people that we talk with or that we coach, when you say, what do you think you want to do here? And somebody says, well, really I haven't really said this to anybody, but I've been thinking that maybe I could do this, right? So that you sort of they're uncovering that goal or that sort of hidden desire that they've kept, behind something. Oftentimes in that conversation, they will, not something that we say or something that I say, but they will say, well, now that I'm thinking about this, I could, and they come up with some awesome strategy, right? Like some resource that's already within their grasp. They just have never, and just by talking about it and beginning to problem solve, right? If we don't talk about it, we don't own it, we don't put it out there, then we aren't really we're not really trying to solve the problem, right?
It's very true.
Once we actually say, you know what, I am going for this, then I'm well, that's great that you're going to hold me accountable. You're going to ask me how it's going, all that stuff. But also my own brain kicks into gear. And I'm like, well, what else can I throw at this? What other resources are available to me? And oftentimes the best ideas that come out of a conversation like that are self-generated, but it's that you've actually sort of owned up to, and what happened was you said you were going to do it, and you engaged in that conversation, kind of made the commitment, and then immediately your mind moves. Instead of having that thing in front of you like a block, now you've already agreed to go across the bridge, basically, and now your brain moves on to problem solving. How am I going to go across this bridge?
Yeah, that's so beautifully said. And I also think people just really effortlessly start helping each other. I was at an Oz Mompreneur conference, and they made us go around the table and just tell, it was a large conference, but there was about 10 people on your table, and everybody had to go around and just say 3 goals that they had for the next year with their businesses. And what amazed me was a woman would say 3 goals, and around the table, other women would be like, I know the contact you need for that. I can help you with that. Have you tried this? And it was just bam, bam, bam. As soon as we come together and start voicing these things into the world, it is so incredibly powerful. And I believe it's so important as well, because I believe, the people who are attracted to this work, we are all earth angels. And my deepest spiritual belief is that we are here to complete a very specific mission, to help people in only the way that we can. And whether that's through acupuncture, or whether you're a coach, or whether you own a business, whether you own bricks and mortar company, whatever it is that you're doing, you are helping people in that very specific way, and people need it. And so we need to band together and really voice these goals and dreams that live inside us, because I genuinely believe that those are the things that will heal the world. So the next mistake that I also see people making is about they don't make smart goals. Grant, you're a bit of a genius on the whole smart goals front. Did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so smart goals are, this one's been around for a while, so you might be like, oh, yeah, of course. But, man, you'd be amazed how many smart people are still making stupid goals. So
it's very true.
I mean, this is not genius stuff. This is basically commit to do something that can be done, right? Yeah. Don't commit to do something either completely subjective, would you like to be nicer this year? And how are we going to measure that, right? I mean, who's gonna turn up and help us figure that out at the end of the year? Or even something really good and ultimately measurable, but I'm going to run a marathon, or I'm going to climb a mountain, or I'm going to do something. Those can be good, but you actually, is that possible for you right now, right? For me to say, I was going to run a marathon, I could probably do that in 2016 if I got busy, but, for that to be a smart goal, I would have to work pretty hard. So, although, at the rate it's snowing, I just have to keep shoveling the driveway, and I'm going to be ready for something. I'm not sure what, but,
you're going to be not ready.
Exactly. So, SMART goals, obviously an acronym for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. So maybe you understand SMART goals from the other side. Not to say you're stupid, but maybe you understand SMART goals like this. If you've had a goal that has been your, quotes, goal for the last 5 years, it's probably not SMART. Because in reality, a SMART goal would actually have an end point, right? So if you just say I'm going to, get better at my craft. Well, what is that, right? I mean, what is, I'm going to take a course. Okay, that's a thing, right? Go find the course. It's $500. I need to save some money. I can probably have that done within the next 8 months. And I go to the course, and I've achieved the goal, right? Getting better at my craft is really nebulous. And sometimes you might be able to pull off nebulous, but when you're trying to get really focused and do good stuff, you have to not be nebulous. You have to really be focused. And so we want to move out of that chance place and into something that's a more likely to really work. And so here, just once again, if you've gotten all the way this far, you're completely exposed and you've made all these goals, you can just make dumb goals instead of smart goals, and you're still kind of going to let yourself off the hook.
It's true.
I'm trying to not be successful. I don't know why I'm doing that.
So useful. One of the things that I was doing, like that, I had a stupid goal. I had a stupid goal for years that was to spend more time with my husband in the year. I didn't know what that looked like. Like, it wasn't specific and it wasn't measurable. So I didn't know, like, even if I had increased the amount of time I spent with him, you didn't know, and I couldn't calculate that. So what I started doing instead was writing down very, very specific and measurable goals. So I would write down that I wanted, say, 12 dates, like legit kid-free dates, with my husband in a year. And that was possible and attainable. And once I got clear on that, I actually was able to achieve that goal of getting closer with my husband. And, one of the things that we did as well was we made it attainable, because at that point in time, and, even now, we still don't like going out at nighttime. And so our attainable and specific and measurable goal was to have Friday night, having a date night. And we had a tiny Chase lounge at the time. We've now bought a big sectional couch so we can lay on it at the same time. Very exciting. But we would sit on the Chase lounge together, cram together, and we would watch an episode of Doc Martin while holding hands. And it was the sweetest. It was, I'm so bummed that we ran out of seasons of Doc Martin. I need to find another TV show to do that with, because that was attainable for us. And it was smart because I could actually tick off the list. Yeah, I did spend more time with my husband this year, and we actually felt more connected because of our little Doc Martin on the Chase Lounge dates. So that's my example of taking a stupid goal and making it smart. So
definitely.
Let's talk about.
We need like twice as many Doc Martin episodes.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Like, now I need to binge watch something else with my husband while holding hands. So, mistake number 6. Do you want to share about mistake number 6?
Totally.
Because you're pretty good at it, truth be told. Sometimes you're pretty good at this mistake. FYI, in case you haven't noticed.
Here's the thing. I mean, if you're holding out and you've come this far, and you're just, you're still hoping that you can avoid having to actually achieve your goals, this is a great way to go. And this is like you're getting down to, it's like you're on an interstate and there's only so many exits left before you're actually going to do what you, in your heart, really want to do. And so this is like exit 6. We'll just call it that. You just like take this exit and you'll just go out in the country and you'll never see the beautiful place you were going. And so this is just to say, so if you really set SMART goals, you should have taken care of this, but you might have really big SMART goals, right? So you might have said, hey, I am going to do a marathon, and it is going to take a lot of effort, but, I'm willing to commit to that. But you still keep it like that, right? Nobody ever shows up at, the starting line and says, my goal was to run a marathon. And so I just got up every day and I thought, I need to run a marathon. I mean, it comes down to, like Leonie's saying, right? I'm gonna actually sit and spend some time in this activity, whether that's with Chris on the couch being inappropriate, or start out with a mile, start out with half a mile, start somewhere. Break them down. Do not make your goals out of unobtaining them. In the planners this year, we talked about this because if you've been around Leonie World a while, we talk about riding wild donkeys, which you should just search that, Leonie and wild donkeys, and you will find the blog post that's about if you're not familiar with that. But basically a wild donkey is just like if you're trying to break a wild donkey, you just ride it until it's finished, whatever that takes. And if you're doing sort of a wild donkey task, you just commit to finish up that web page or write the blog post or whatever it is, and you just go hard at it, right? But some things like really big goals, that doesn't work. You can't train for a marathon like you ride a wild donkey, right? You just I'm just going to go out in the street here and run until I'm ready for this marathon, even if it takes me 6 months around the clock. That doesn't actually work. So we created an idea called Magic Mountain, which is like, you know, these signposts as you go up this, basically a project, right? You have this large thing, but you think through, what are the chunks that I can break this into and make it down to things that are obtainable? And those little pieces are SMART goals as well, that all collectively move you toward this big goal that you are, you know, completely excited about.
Totally. And I wanted to share a real life example of one of my magical mountains that I wanted to clamber up. When I was pregnant with Beth, I wanted to write my a W business program, which was kind of like the big business intensive that I wanted to share with all my academy members. And I knew it was going to be big. And when I thought about it, I felt completely paralyzed. And it probably didn't help as well that I had hyperemesis gravidarum with Beth and was horrifically ill and in and out of hospital. But I'm nearly dealt with that in therapy, so thank you for letting me bitch about it for a moment or two longer. But so I knew I had to finish this massive project, and it was too big for me to even look at. And so I procrastinated on it for months. And eventually I was like, right, okay, I'm going to set myself a very short deadline. I gave myself 3 months. I don't even think I had 3 months. 3 months sounds far too strenuous. It seems far too forward thinking for me. It was probably 2 months. Might have ended up stretching into 3, but I set the goal that I would write 3,000 words a day in order to get to that end bigger goal. And so each day I didn't wake up thinking, I need to work on that W business program. Instead, I actually broke it up into small steps that were daily steps. And my specific goal that I told myself, that I wrote down and I told everybody else, was I will write 3,000 words for this program before the sun sets every single day. And I tell you what, by 3 p.m., things would start getting right, fuck it, shit, okay, let's go. Yeah. And I would do it. And sometimes it was just as the sun was setting that I would just knock over into the 3,000 words. But gosh darn, it got done. And it ended up being, I think it's 50,000 plus words once it got edited down. And it's a huge tome, and I'm very, very proud of it, but I absolutely categorically would not have finished it had I not broken it down into those daily steps. So that's why we created in the workbooks a way for you to actually write this down this year, is for you to really get clear on those steps so you can make them actionable and you can actually achieve those things and get yourself some momentum. Because every single time I hit that 3,000 steps, I would get this little thrill of, yeah, I did it. It's a mini achievement. It's I hit base camp 1 of Everest, or, camp number 2 of Everest. It felt amazing when I'd hit those goals, and it creates more and more momentum. Whereas if you're just chipping away going, I've got to do 50,000 words, and you only finish 3,000 in a day, you would just feel so completely paralyzed and overwhelmed by the journey ahead. So that's my helpful hint.
I think the other thing that comes to mind there is that the things that really matter to us in life, so our most important relationships with our spouse, with our close family, our kids, the parenting journey, if you're on that particular roller coaster, really exposing and coming to grips with and working on the purpose and sort of why you're here. These sort of really big jobs are even bigger than business tasks. Yeah. And so as we undertake those, it's the same methodology, right? You can't in a day have a good life. You can't be a person of character in a day. You can't have a great marriage in a day. You can't be a great parent or raise fabulous kids in a day. All these things are just it's like cutting down a tree, and just every day you take the axe out and just hit it once. That's your contribution. And so this is a way of thinking, right? We live in this world where we want to be able to obsess on something and complete it, but that's not always possible for the things that really matter the most. And so, I think this way of thinking about business also crosses over to our lives, and it's really, about saying how do we come to grips with the things that we can do each day that are on the road to the thing that we want to get to.
It's true. I was thinking about how, me and Grant do regular goal-setting exercises together because we're kind of, we do accountability together, and we've been doing this since even before we started working together. It's like, okay, what's your goals? All right, let's accountability, be accountability buddies together. And me and Grant both had our goals to, deepen our relationships with our magnificent Scorpion spousal units. And, for 3 months. And so, I was really, really trying hard to work out how can I make that into a smart goal? What is it that I need to do, and actually to know that I'm deepening that relationship. And what I ended up coming out with was, I want to read these 2 particular relationship books and talk about them with Mr. Dawson within 3 months. That's attainable. The mountain that is having, a lifetime long successful relationship, I can't achieve that in one day, but I can write down very specific little steps that will get me up that mountain. So,
exactly.
Mistake number 7, and I think, yes, mistake number 7, I think this is actually really important too, because it's so, when we're talking about relationships and family, this is where we do get waylaid. Grant was noticing that when we were looking at the workbook group, which both of us are in each day and looking through and, just feeling so inspired by the women that are in there and the men as well. We do have more and more men increasingly joining the unicorn world, which is the coolest thing ever.
Good buddies, man.
Yeah, the total bromance. It's lovely. It's the boy club. We noticed that some people were saying, you know what, I feel really bad because I didn't achieve my goals in 2015, and it's because this and this and this and this and this and this and this happened. And these are really big fucking things that they were coping with, family problems. Their kids had big illnesses, that had, some marital problems that they had to go through and support their husband with. And, things came up along the way, which took them off the course of being able to, tick every goal out of the past. And Grant said to me, I really want to tell people that there's a mistake in not adjusting to reality. So Grant, do you want to share a little bit more about that philosophy?
Yeah, there's this great book called Deep Survival. And it's a book about all these great stories about people who have endured horrific physical circumstances, like getting lost for 50 days in a boat in the Pacific, with nothing, or, getting lost out in the woods, or falling off of a mountain, or, all kinds of amazing stories. And literally, who kind of makes it and who doesn't. And one of the things that he talks about is the definition of lost. And lost has a lot of definitions. Obviously, people are trying to figure out what it means, but the one that resonated with him and really resonated with me the most was that when the internal mental map no longer matches the outside world, then you're lost. And
yeah.
he liked that definition, not because it didn't just apply to people that were lost in the woods. It actually applied to people who were lost in their lives. That a person could get lost in the middle of their life and have an idea, have a set of landmarks, have, some orientation to how they were approaching the world that didn't match anything that you would see outside of their brain, right? That those landmarks weren't actually where the landmarks were anymore. And what, you thought you were moving into the sun and you're actually moving away from the sun. And so I think with goals here, it's really important. The example that I was thinking about when we talked about this was back to the marathon runner, so that's your goal. It's going to be a stretch, but you think you can squeeze it in 2016. And, God forbid, on the way home, you get in a car accident, you break both legs. And at the end of 2016, you've learned to walk again. that's a dang big accomplishment. But it isn't a marathon, admittedly. And I think that people who are successful do a great job of just pivoting in those moments and saying, okay, the marathon's going to have to wait, but the next thing that's on my list is figuring out how to walk again. Let's get that underway. And those kinds of pivots are just necessities, right? And so, on one hand, I want to really encourage people to work hard and try to be successful and, try to achieve your goals, but also recognize when, circumstances that are far beyond your control show up and deal with those. Your child has an illness. It's probably going to change how you spend your time. That's a good thing. We wouldn't want somebody to not have that, right? We would want someone who says, wow, I really need to adjust. Reminds me, for a very brief period of time in my life, I was a nursing student. I
did not know that about you. I did not know that about you.
Yeah, it was a short period of time, but I was pretty good at, I don't know. So I was actually with a gentleman one morning, and he got some test results back that were very negative, and there was some disease process that was operating pretty rapidly in him. And I'll never forget his reaction, because it really felt tragic given the situation. He was frantic about the fact that he could not run his company. This was a man who was, I think, almost 50, if I recall. And his sort of biggest, first thing that he thought about was, I can't run this company. And, I hope, you never really know until you hit one of those moments, right? But my hope would be that we're more focused on something that has more lasting value. That we can say, you know what, we have this set of priorities, we know these are important, but if something like in this list interrupts those, then that's what we shift to. We move to a different level of work, and that's okay. And we recognize that that's part of why we want to set goals and we want to be focused and we want to be taking the right steps, is because this is a finite existence. And you never know how long you get. And so you want to be ready when the time comes, whatever that moment is that interrupts what you're doing, to shift gears. That's a good thing to be ready to do. So use the time that you have really well, but be ready to adjust to reality if it shows up, and still be a good friend, or still be a good spouse, or still be, a good human when that's what's called for.
And just, I think we all need to give ourselves a big old break as well. I think so many of us, we can really beat up on ourselves if we don't achieve the goals that we want. But, when we look back at why things went the way that they did, there's usually some pretty significant reasons for that, and that's okay. There's no reason to be a superhuman, and we don't need to expect that of ourselves. It's okay for us to say, you know what, this is completely understandable to have had this result, and I'm going to forgive myself, and I'm going to love myself, and know that that's okay. So that works really nicely into mistake number 8, which is don't forgive yourself when you don't reach goals. I know that some people, when they get the workbooks, they become paralyzed with writing down goals because they're so afraid of writing down another goal and not achieving them again. And, I want you to know that there's been many, many goals that I've set that I haven't achieved, and that's okay. And, I feel teary when I say that. And, I really mean that whole of heart. And it's not like I'm like this fucking Buddha that feels totally cool when I don't reach a goal. I think Grant's probably seen enough of my little existential crises to know that, I absolutely struggle with this too. But to not beat up against yourself or declare that is your final scorecard in life. You're one of those people that doesn't achieve goals, and so why bother? Just give up now. It's an unhelpful attitude, So whatever it is that you need to do in order to forgive yourself, find a practice that works for you and do it again and again and again. So when I'm talking about those practices, I'm talking about things like therapy, kinesiology, intuitive healing. Some people really like EFT. There's so many ways that you can move through those paralyzing fears and those paralyzing feelings and become, as Brene Brown calls it, wholehearted. To be radiant and rare, to be broken and beautiful all at the same time. Profound in your imperfections. I want to share that, a couple of days ago we hit a major goal for the company. Our goal's been to become a $2 million a year company. We've hit it. And a part of me was like, well, fuck, what's next? I didn't even take time to really celebrate that goal. I just was so, chasing that carrot. And it's a really beautiful thing because it made me realize, oh, this is the next thing for me to take into the work. This is the next thing for me to become whole about. This is the thing that's appearing next for me to do the work on in order to heal and grow that. Grant, did you want to share anything more on that?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. If you take a person, and I think you're a great example of this. If we, when we get to the Q&A part of this call, we put somebody on who says, man, I was working on it. I was all on track last year, and then something happened, and then I just kind of fell apart. You're going to be the first person to say, you know what, that's fine. Just pick yourself up. Let's figure out what the next right step is and take that. And there's a great lyric in this David Wilcox song where he's talking about a guy who's having a heart attack. And he says your heart was dying for the life it was pushing through. This amazing image of a person having a medical crisis because the heart, which has plenty of blood in it, is actually pushing the blood out and is starving itself. And it's like if the heart would have just fed itself a little bit with exactly what it was working on, would have been fine.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of those places that most people, when you ask them about your life and you say, well, here's kind of what went wrong, they're really generous. But to ourselves, we're almost never generous. We might let ourselves off the hook kind of, but inside most of the time there's a slave master in there. There's somebody that's pushing really, really hard. And we laugh about that sign that says the beatings will continue until morale improves. But inside there's plenty of people that have that as a motto. And so I think with this mistake, it's really just to say, you're going to fall off track. You'll be off track by the end of first quarter. That doesn't matter. Pick yourself up. Say, hey, stuff happened, and I'm back going at it. And, don't let that pull you off into a great hole and stop you from being kind to yourself. Just reset, reboot, and get back to work.
And, I think that's why with the workbooks and with the diary, we really set those processes in place where you can reflect back on it and forgive yourself through that process as well, to really glean the wisdom and the lessons from that experience and not take it on board as this big fucking beat up experience. It's so unhealthy and unhelpful. So mistake number 9, did you want to share about this one, Granto?
This one is this is the mistake almost of laziness, just to say, don't do the work. So it's all well and good if you got all the way to 8 and you're like, I'm good. I have committed. I've done this. Now this stuff just magically happens. The magic is you. So don't do the work to make the goal happen is mistake number 9, because your goals don't work unless you do. So as much as we want to say, hey, be gentle with yourself, be based in reality, understand, what's possible. And, when things change, then you've got to adjust to that. but at the same time, man, those tires have to be spinning. There's nothing that gets accomplished without effort. And, you know, and sometimes this is why you never even make it to mistake number 9, because if you can just get off at exit 1 and not actually know where you are, or exit 2 and not make any goals, then, you know, you kind of instinctively know, once I make goals, I'm going to have to start showing up. But this is really a commitment that you have to make, to say, man, I've made these goals, and now I'm going to give it all I've got.
And, you know, I think, like, because I'm like a total self-proclaimed hippie and I did this for years, so I feel like I can rail on it pretty easily, is that I think we as hippies can get a little bit too sucked into the whole secret mindset. It's that if you just intend it, it shall come to you. It's such a load of shit. It's a fallacy. Like, you can't just set a goal and it magically fucking appears for you. Like, you know, you write a letter to Santa and your unicorn appears the next day. This is not how it works.
Have you seen that meme of, like, Albert Einstein, and it says, if you get a job, you'll come into some money within 2 weeks?
Wow. That's
I just love that, right? It's like that same, you know, like, if you share this, you'll be whatever in the next 24 hours. This one's just like, hey, here's a secret. If you're going to start working, you're going to come into some money in the next couple of weeks.
I cannot deny Einstein's logic. He is a fucking genius.
There's no wisdom there, exactly.
So do the work. There's nothing that will help you along the journey if you're not going to be prepared to do the work. So, and I think this all waylays very nicely into mistake number 10, which is don't let the goal grow you. Because along this way, you are going to hit up against parts of yourself, and you're going to actually have to grow and heal your shit. You're going to have to become a bigger and better person. You're going to have to be somebody who achieves their goals. You're going to have to stop a lot of your bad habits. You're going to have to improve your communication skills. You're going to have to apply discipline and dedication and discernment. And that process it's hard. And you have to be so tenacious to go, you know what? Yeah, this is the thing that's come up. And you know what? This is so perfect because now I can become the person that I've always been destined to be. Grano, did you want to share about that process? Because I think...
I love this one. I love this one. I wrote about some of this earlier in the year in one of my blog posts, just about sort of, you know, looking ahead too far and not realizing that it isn't just that, you know, the mountain is there to be climbed, but you will have grown by the time you get to that part of the mountain. You know, it's not a linear journey where it's just you throughout all of 2016 doing bigger and bigger things. You also are becoming bigger and bigger. You know, you're growing along with the challenges. And I also just, you know, from our experience, I'm sitting here thinking about the many points that we have come to, you know, some amount of frustration or just sort of like, how is this going to work? And I can see really clearly places that we've both sort of dug in and said, all right, if this is going to work, we see a beautiful vision here. We see a huge amount of potential. We want to make this work. What is it going to take? And, you know, when you set a goal like that, you begin to move in that direction. If you're honest, you're going to recognize that, yeah, there's outside circumstance and there's stuff beyond your control and there's all that. But there's going to be a day when you're like, you know what? That was literally my one foot kicking my other foot. You know, like this is completely me getting in my own way, preventing my own success. And at that moment, you have a choice. You can unsee that and just say, well, I'm sure that was because the sidewalk is not level. Or
well,
fuck them,
it's their fault. You know, like you can try to blame it. I say, well, and you can also just say, well, fuck them, it's their fault.
Right. So like you can totally just off it, you know, and say, hey, this is not about me. This is not my problem. Or And, you and I can think of a few conversations where we've just kind of both come up and said, well, yeah, that part there, that was totally me. I did that to myself, and in the process, it did something to you, and that's how this all happened. And so that's a hard place, right? And you just need to know going into this journey that when you say, hey, I'm gonna handle 2016 differently, you're gonna bump into some spots that are gonna be completely you, and you have a choice in that moment to either continue that pattern and continue your pattern of denial, and I say that with all love and kindness. That's really what it is you're denying this part of yourself that's continued to trip you up. Or you can say, you know what? Here's the good news. I have this really big goal, and as I was working on the really big goal, it exposed this really big problem that I have. And now I know what the problem. I know how to meet the goal. All I have to do is fix the problem. What is it going to take? Is it therapy? Do I need some education? Do I need to take a course? Do I need to find a mentor? What does it look like to really take on? This is how I achieved the goal. It turns out it wasn't just all the work of doing the goal. I actually have to grow, and I found that point, and I'm so excited to be able to really undertake this journey with even more purpose and more focus, because now I know what it is.
It's true. And when you adopt that mindset, it's really life-changing. And, I've always tried to have that mindset, and I think this year it's been even more amplified for me. And, I'll always remember, I did write about this on my blog as well, the story of a fuck-up. So you're most welcome to go and peruse my mistakeages. I really micromanaged my team in parts of this year, and did some things which really fucking pissed them off. I really upset Grant, and I really upset the rest of my team, and they felt disempowered, and they felt like, how the fuck are we supposed to work with this person who keeps changing her mind and, does these things which are a bit passive aggressive. That wasn't, and of course that absolutely wasn't my intention. I thought I was, doing a really good job. I thought I was like kicking goals and all that kind of stuff. But once I actually listened to what they said, I was like, oh yeah, I can completely see why you think that and why you feel that and why that isn't the best course of action for me. And I mean, I felt like my heart was broken as well, because I was like, oh God, I can't believe I've settled these people, and I can't believe I'm 33 years old and I still don't know how to be a human yet. But it was just so wonderful. And, I cried a lot as I realized the extent of how my actions had affected people. And I was able to look back at life, all of my life, and see where I'd done exactly the same thing before. And instead of running away from it, I just got closer to it this year and tried to face it head on. And I really feel like I'm a better person for it, and my relationships with my team and my little family are better for it, for me learning that lesson. Fucking painful and uncomfortable to go through, but when I stuck with it and going, you know what, I actually need to heal this in order to keep on moving into the direction of the way that I want to go, the only way out is through. You can't go around it. You can't go above it. You've just got to go through it and let yourself be transformed by that process and face your shit. That's big stuff. So the next big thing is mistake number 11. Really there.
Supposing you survived mistake number 10.
Yeah. Ta-da! There's still some more mistakes you can make. Hurrah! So mistake number 11 is don't let jealousy or comparison-itis halt your progress. One of my favorite teachers about jealousy is Denise Duffield-Thomas, who wrote Lucky Bitch. I think she's a fantastic person and a fantastic teacher. And she talks so honestly about who she feels jealous about, and the way that she looks at it is she thinks, okay, cool, this person triggers me for a reason and I feel really jealous, and it's because they have something that I want. And that means that I can just, I know that I know that it's doable now in the world. I know that that thing that I want in the world is possible because somebody else has it. And so I just have to work out what they do and make that happen for me as well. And it takes all of the negative energy out of it. And it means that, you know, she just is free to look at the situation from an analytical perspective and go, okay, yeah, this is really motivational for me. This is something that I want in my life. I don't have to be like feel like there's a lack in the universe, and that if they have it, I won't. I get to see this as proof of abundance, that this is possible and that this is doable. So that's something that I wanted to throw in there because I know that we do get stuck in comparisonitis and jealousy. And mistake number 12, and I think this is a really, really big one, it's don't surround yourself with positive people who have goals and are making them happen. So, you know, we've gone through and talked about all of the kinds of ways you can fuck yourself up the arse. That's the poetic way of saying it. You know, I'm just pure poetry. There's so many ways for you to fuck yourself up the arse of not writing goals down or, you know, not making them smart and actionable and making magical mountain maps and all of those kinds of things. But the thing is, if you do all of those things and then fail to surround yourself with people who've got goals and are making them happen, you are not going to continue having momentum in your life because it's going to be the new normal for you to be. Your normal is to be around people who are victims of circumstance and who don't make changes in their life and who don't look at their life consciously and let their goals grow them and take responsibility for their own shit. And I love that whole quote of you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most amount of your time with, so you better make them good ones. And it's like when me and Grant first started talking, I was really honest with him. I was like, you know, you've got like lots of things that you want to achieve, and if you don't achieve them, we won't be spending time together because I can't be around people who are fat sacks. And you know, Grant,
that I shook myself out while I had the chance. Oh wait, thought I was on mute.
You're right. Whoopsie daisy, ouch. You know, like I'm blunt. I'm blunt about it now. I'm particularly blunt with Grant, the poor bastard. But you know, I'm just blunt about the fact. You know what? No, I can't afford to spend time with people who are not of the right mindset, who aren't having healthy habits, and who aren't doing the right thing with their lives. It's not snobby. I have a short amount of time to socialize with people. So sure as fuck I'm going to be spending it with people who inspire me to do better and who makes it my new normal. I love that my girl posse is filled with women who just think it's normal to, you know, write best-selling books and who, you know, think it's normal to build schools in Africa and things like that. That to them is like, yeah, of course I'll do that. It's not out of reach of possibility. You know, one of my friends is like, oh, I think I need to like be on a TV show. And we're like, yeah, great idea. You know, that's the kind of people I want to be hanging out with. I don't like if I was spending my time with people who are like, oh, woe with me, life sucks, nothing good ever happens to me. Like, fuck that. I'm not interested, and I need to keep my mindset really, really high. So a reminder to join the Facebook group, facebook.com/group/shining here. It's a wonderful place of women who are achieving goals and are letting them, you know, who are going through this process, who are admitting their mistakes as they go. Like, I love the people who turn up and be like, you know what, I bought the book last year and I didn't even like fill it out. I was so paralyzed, so I'm going to fill it out this year. And everyone's like, wow! Like, it is okay to make these mistakes. You just need to be honest about them. Like, get publicly accountable and do something about it. You don't have to hold shame about it. You don't have to, like, beat yourself up over it. You can just be like, this is where I'm at, and this is what I'm doing to change that. Grant, did you want to share anything more about that?
I just think, and we talked about this, you know, kind of touched on this with, you know, with a couple of these, but there's also, for the right kind of people, there's power in that sense of responsibility and a really clear, honest accounting of your behavior or lack thereof and what you're doing about it. So sometimes our goals involve other people, right? Like recognizing, hey, I want a better relationship with my spouse, or I'm going to do better at work, or I'm going to work harder on my business, or take care of this client more, or whatever those things are. And you know, when you start to change into that sort of proactive, very responsible, I'm taking care of my own business, I'm owning my own problems, you know, people have a hard time not responding to that, right? Number one, it's incredibly rare. And number two, you know, people recognize the struggle that they feel to achieve or to deliver or to do what needs to be done, and they see that you're really wrestling with that. And so, you know, I think there's a power beyond anything that we've really touched on here, that as you start to change your life in those ways, you can also get some breaks, and you can get some help, and you can enlist allies you didn't even realize that you had. And, you know, you, by changing who you're spending your time with and, you know, sort of who these 5 people are, you're setting yourself up to be an attractor of the right kind of people and the right kind of relationships and the right kind of resources to achieve your goals.
Yeah, and that's powerful. That's life-changing. We say pieces in schools because this is the stuff that can change the world, because I believe in us. We have these seeds of magnificence. And if all of us, I deeply and genuinely and passionately believe that if all of us were doing our missions here on earth, this world would be transformed and healed. That's what's at stake here. It's not just about us achieving our fucking goals and ticking another thing off on our list. This is about us changing the world, living our missions that we were born to do, becoming the powerful and happy and loving embodiments of potential, so that we can change the lives of the people around us, our families, our friends, our communities, our countries, and our world. That's what's at stake here. If women and spirited men could step up and realize the potential that they have in them, and know that those dreams are given to them for a reason, and it's because this world needs them. And once you work out the secrets to making those things happen and realizing what mistakes you need to avoid along the way, and you just start doing this thing that you were born to do, that's what wakes me up in the morning. That's why I'm here. That's why the workbooks are in existence. It's to help you get there and make it happen, because your dreams are needed in this world. And you are here to live your biggest and bravest and most magnificent life. And we want to support you to do that. We want to see you shine. Like, me and Greg's happiest moments are when we get emails and messages from people saying, this is what's changed for us. This is how this book has helped me to heal and grow. And this is how much my business has changed from doing this work. When I stepped up to become a conscious creator, everything changed. So that's my loving prayer, and that is my intention. I hope these mistakes, sharing about these mistakes, has been really, really helpful for you. So we're going to be opening up for live Q&A now. You can talk to us by pressing *2. You can type in your questions as well. We'll be taking a variety of those, and we will answer questions for as long as we can. We're really here because we want to see you succeed and shine that incredible light of yours big and bright in the world.
So we have some typed questions.
Okay.
Yeah, we have typed questions, and we have a couple of hands raised. So let us, let's see here. I had and then I lost. So this is an interesting one. This will be a little change up. So really, for both of us, when we read books, do we make notes, or how do we absorb and change and implement? Like, how do we get from ideas into execution you know, when you're in a 300-page book.
Yeah. I think this is really important. I think, fuck reading a book, you know, like some people set goals of, you know, reading like 100 books in a year. I would more recommend you reading one book and doing it well. So treat it as a textbook. I like to buy hardcover books because they're a little bit more durable, and I tear off the dust covers because those things fucking shit me. They're the bane of my fucking existence. And just FYI, just in case you're wondering, it's not just you. I fucking hate dust covers too. I go through with a highlighter and with a pen. I've got, usually there's note pages at the back, and I write down the actionables, like capital A, circle, write it down. One of the things that me and Grant have done for the last year, and we will continue on this year, is we're working through Bern Harnish's Scaling Up. That book is fucking intense. I would never, ever recommend reading it in one sitting. Grant did in February and nearly had a fucking nervous breakdown. So we're going through it together. We're going through it together, and we're doing it really slowly and going, okay, have we implemented this chapter now? If not, we're not moving on. And, you know, one of our Become a Company goals is to have that, you know, fully implemented, every single one of those habits implemented with systems in our company by the end of this year. And it doesn't necessarily need to be that book, but it needs to be something. Like, you need to choose something and go, you know what, I'm really dedicated to this. So if you're in the academy, my recommendation would be to get W Business Program, print it out. I got mine spiral bound this week. You might have seen it on Facebook. It's fucking massive. That's the thing that I wrote in 3,000 words a day. I would go through and nail the shit out of every single one of those. And again, get publicly accountable, break it up into smaller steps, have deadlines on all of these things, and then make that happen. So that's my advice on books. Grant, do you have any?
Yeah, and I'd say this is, you know, like this links into a lot of research on learning styles and how people actually absorb information just generally, right? So this is not something I would get hung up on in terms of like better your way than my way. You know, like the short answer is what works, right?
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I do a lot is, you know, when I'm reading something, I process it with other people because I'm very social. So until I talk about something that hasn't really happened or you know, fully kind of gotten unpacked. So talk about things, the good stuff. We put things in teamwork, or we put things in, you know, in places that we can find them again. So when you have great ideas, sort of like capturing that stuff so that you actually don't have to like think of it again, but it's already, you know, sort of in your way. And I would also say stuff that's really implementable, we're pretty fast to implement. So if we have an idea, it's like, yeah, that's a great idea. We should do it tomorrow. You know, like we try to move quickly, and we're, you know, sometimes technical realities or, you know, workload or whatever can influence that, but we try to get things in moving so that it's actually happening.
Yeah.
So here's somebody just saying the diary is rocking their world, which is awesome.
Oh, yay. Me too. I'm not usually a big diary user, but of course I have one that we got, I mean, it was asked for so much that I created it. And then I had a spare copy, and so I started using it. I'm like, holy fucking shit, this is good. Whoever came up with this is a fucking legend. Pat on the back, big kettles for yearning.
So if somebody wanted to set goals, business goals for a new business that they've just purchased, would you do a diary or a workbook, and sort of what's the difference between both of them?
Sure. So the diary, I would start on the business workbook to really set yourself like your map out for the next year, and then you use the diary to like ensure that that map is met each month and each week. So the diary is kind of meant as the companion product to it.
Yeah. So I think the big direction setter would be the workbook. And then the diary is really an expression of those into smaller periods of time.
Yeah.
So,
did you want to take a live question?
Yeah, let's take a live question.
Yeah, whoa!
Woo, live questions. Let's see here.
So star 2 if you want to raise your hand, guys, and then we can answer your questions. We like to talk to people because we do not get out of the house very much.
And I think we have Jessica. Is it not
Hi,
Jessica? I hear wind.
Somebody's in the wind.
Yeah. Says, is there a Jessica? Because you are unmuted.
Maybe just hold again until, and maybe she can raise her hand again if she still wants to. Maybe she butt dialed us.
Yeah, maybe so. It's entirely possible. Okay, so how about Gordon?
Hi, it's Shannon. Hello.
Shannon. Okay, great. We got you.
They're totally amazing. I've never been an entrepreneur. I have so many ideas. The artsy, crafty, magical, mystical. And I understand small steps for me work best. How do I dial in what services, products will help move humanitarian forward?
Did you catch that, Grant? It was breaking up for me.
Yeah, some of that's breaking up a little bit for me too. Can you say that again, Shannon? I got like probably 50% of it. So just run it back by us.
I've never been an entrepreneur and have so many ideas. There's artsy and crafty, tarot, the magical, the mystical, and smaller steps work best for me. I know I do some goals and planning. How do I dial in what is best to help move humanitarianism forward?
So, like, one, you're in the right place because artsy, crafty, and mystical, magical is basically our fucking target market right there. Basically, because that's me. So you're in the right place, and I'm really excited by that. So think about kind of like where you might want to be by the end of this year. Like, even if it's just to not overwhelm yourself, like just a realistic goal, and then really like just mapping out every single small step to get there. So, say, let's just go, like, I'm just going to pull this out of my ass, but if you want to like earn even just $5,000 from artsy crafty stuff in the next year, just to prove it to yourself to be non-overwhelming. So write down a list of all the different ways that you can make that happen. So in the business workbooks, there's a chart where you can kind of dream out some potential ways to make that happen. Then once you've kind of got how, what sort of things that you want to sell in order to get to that number, then take each of those and break it down into those magical mountain maps where you've got really, really short, actionable goals that can be completed in a day or less. And then you can just overlay it into your wall planner or into your diary and go, okay, the deadline for this to happen is this date, and write it down on there. So you get to it and you're like, oh, okay, this is what I need to do in order to have my goal at the end of the year. Does that make sense?
Got it. That's awesome. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. And lots of love to you. I can't wait to see what you create.
I will do that. Thank you.
So cute. All right, next one, Granto.
Let's see here. So we're going to go back to, I think it's Atlanta.
Hello in Atlanta.
Or not. We just haven't been. All right. So let's go back here to our
Next question.
So question about the book about teams that you recommended, which was the 5 dysfunctions of a team, I believe.
Yes, the 5 dysfunctions of a team. Who wrote that? Was it Maxwell?
Let's look.
Let me find out. Patrick Lencioni. That's a nice name. The 5 dysfunctions of a team by Patrick, Lencioni. It's a short book and bloody wonderful. It's a fable, which I love. I love like when books are written as stories because that's how I understand things. If you want to give me like a boring fucking to-do list, I do not give a shit. So I love a good fable like that. 5 Dysfunctions of the Team by Patrick Lencioni. All right, next question.
So I filled out both the Biz and Life books, and I've already gotten lost in the amount of things I want to make happen, learn, create, do, etc. Any suggestions for how to chunk the whole workbooks down?
Sure. So, yes, you can. Intuitive hit, though, I have a feeling that you should go through first and highlight the goals that you want to work on first. Like, what are the things to start implementing now? What are the things that you're most called to? Because once you've sort of got those going, then you're like, oh, okay, cool. Those are in the air. Let's make the next thing happen after that. So I would actually just go to the simple process of a highlighter, choose the goals and have deadlines for them. Maybe you'll go through and like highlight all the things that you just want to work on in January and then write up a list of all of like the little actionables to get you there. Because once you've got momentum happening, it's exciting. And yes, it is fucking overwhelming when you look at a year's worth of goals. So that's how I do it, is like to go highlight. I'll even go back and just like circle the things that I want to work on next, that is closest to me and has the most energy behind it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's really critical, because here's the other part that makes it really hard to think out too far, is at some point your later goals are dependent on the first one's working. And so if you try to extend that too far, it's like, well, I have this thing and I'm going to do this thing, but I'm going to do it after this other thing is done. And, and it's like, well, that just gets crazy because there's a lot of possibilities. Things might change, new doors, new opportunities. So you want to set that big vision, but then you really need to come back to the current vision and start working through it, take those next steps. So it's a critical balance to kind of have a 50,000 foot view, but not try to work from that level. That'll just make your brain hurt.
Yeah.
So here's a good question. As a visionary, how do you find an assistant who can keep up? I've always done it myself, and I'm finding it hard to explain my process to others.
Grant, would you like to speak to this?
That should be a separate call. We're going to need some time for you to really distill your wisdom for us.
One, to realize that you're as culpable as the other person. As in, if it's not working, it's 50% your fault, at least. And I mean this with love, and I mean this with hard-won experience. So, I used to have the mindset, well, if people make one fuck up, they're terrible, and I would just fire them. And that is so not healthy and helpful. And it means I was going through like a lot of churn, whereas now I have the attitude of, if I just hire good people and then coach them and work out those communication snafus when they come up and create systems in place to make things happen, I feel a lot better about that process. And, Grant still will say to me, like, I don't know what you're thinking in this situation. I don't understand. Can you explain it to me? Because I so often expect people to read my mind and just go away and do it and stop annoying me, which is not a helpful process to have. And I think it's because, I started off doing it all myself. Very much a get shit donist, and I would, if something was broken, I would just go fix it myself. And so I really had to learn how to communicate exactly what I wanted, without assuming that people could read my mind or have the 11 years of experience that I have, and really just improve my communication and management skills and improving systems so that, we've got teamwork now. We have all of the tasks that need to be done written out, like there's video tutorials about how to do every task. So everybody knows that if they were hit by a bus tomorrow, that we should be able to hire somebody and look in teamwork and know exactly what things they were working on, what things that they need to do, what's their regular tasks, and have step-by-step instructions to making all those things happen. This is like been like the work of a lifetime, really, to get to this point of developing enough so that I could lead a team. And also realizing the parts where I suck at leading a team as well. So Grant definitely takes on more people management stuff than I, because he's better at it. So Grant, have you got other things to say on top of that?
Yeah. So I think the first piece to recognize in that process is it is difficult. It's not just you, or it's not just the person you hired. It's actually a challenging transfer of information and direction, and that's okay. So just let it be difficult at times. Like it's not, you may not be doing it wrong. It's just maybe hard. So you got to get through that, and then I think you have to really identify what is breaking. So one of the things that I say to Leonie sometimes is I say you have to be curious. You have to be more curious than you're currently being about why we didn't achieve what you had hoped we would achieve. Because usually the reason isn't like we were supposed to work, but we just decided, on Friday, it's actually Saturday in Australia, so we just decided we would call it Saturday in the U.S. and we wouldn't get anything done. It's like, no, that's not how we roll. We're working hard. So if we're not getting something done, or you're not getting a transfer of information to this person the way that you had hoped, get really curious. What broke? What happened? What did you understand this assignment as, right? How did you do this? And there's a great sort of metaphor for this, which is a lot of times teachers have students write instructions for something really simple, like making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? And then you give it to your partner, and your partner has to take those instructions and absolutely follow them and make whatever it is that you supposedly have made instructions for. And the stuff that kids forget or don't clarify or whatever, I mean, you can get some amazing output there that, it does not look like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And so, this is the same kind of thing, right? So you've got to understand that through this process, this person is trying to understand what you want, but you have to get better at actually telling them what that is and what is the structure that has to be built there. It's a little bit like we talked about in the goals, that this is one of those places you're going to have to let the goal grow you. Yeah. Because or you have a choice, which is I'm going to limit the size of my impact to things I can touch and hold and feel and control. True. And you can make either one of those choices, but once you make a choice, which it sounds like you want to make a choice to say, no, I want to be able to expand my impact. I want to scale the size of the dent I can put in the universe. Then you're going to have to do that with the help of other people. And actually, Leonie and I just did a podcast that is on the blog now, I think, isn't it? Where we talked a little bit about Ingrid Implementer growing into leading and managing a team. And there's a great quote in there that you should go check it out. There's a great quote in there from the CEO of LinkedIn, who talks about this exact thing, especially with founders, because founders are so good at doing, and you have to actually become good at coaching people to do. And it's a transition.
So a couple of resources on this topic would be the E-Myth Revisited by Michael E. Gerber. I tried to read it as a book, and it left me completely cold. Then I listened to him on Audible speaking out the book, and I was on the verge of a spiritual, transcendental moment through parts of it. It is incredible and very, very useful to really think about systems and why things don't work. We also just released for all of our Academy members the How to Create Standard Operating Procedures, and that goes through exactly our team management software, how we've created all of our instructions. You'll get to see inside ours, and we'll show you how to create your own as well. Those things are really, really important. And there's a good book as well called Coaching for Improved Work Performance. I'll try and find out the name. Oh, who wrote it? La, 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 Google. By Ferdinand F. Fornes. What a fucking great name. Ferdinand F. Fornies. Furnies. I could not have made up a better name for him if I tried. That just made me wonder what his middle name is. Ferdinand Frank Fornies? Ferdinand. Is there any other F man name that I don't know about? I have to find out now.
The sky's the limit.
I have to. The sky's the limit. Ferdinand Francesco Fornies. All right, okay, next question because this could go anywhere.
Okay, so we have another audio question here. So I am going to.
Awesome.
So yeah, and just to close that. So getting an assistant, making that transfer, especially for the first time as a founder, is challenging, and there are some resources. I wholeheartedly second your recommendation of Michael Gerber. The E-Myth Revisited is phenomenal. So if you don't start anywhere else, start there. We also have some resources both on the blog and in the Academy, and we'd love you to take advantage of those as well. So I think we have Nancy here. Let's try this. Nancy.
Hi there. Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, you're so cute.
Oh, hi there. I'm calling from the U.S. All right,
Yay!
I got the Life and Biz packet. This is my first time using it this year, and it's great. It's got a lot. It breaks everything down. So I've done a lot of filling in goals and stuff, but I do have a problem with procrastination. And breaking it down, I think it's going to help me with that. I was just wondering if there was any suggestions of how I could break that into a smaller goal across the different topics.
I think you just worry about that later.
You just what?
I think you just worry about that later.
Oh, okay, good. All right, good. Well,
you can just do it later.
That would be easy for me to do. That would be easy.
Oh. So I think let the work change you, as in okay, so choose out the goals that you're going to do in January. Set those deadlines on them. Write out your magical mountain map, and then do them. And if you get stuck, then kind of work out where you're getting stuck. Is it because you're not sure what you want to do next? Is it because you've got some big fear that's come up? Are you feeling creatively paralyzed? If so, then that's where you need to go to therapy or kinesiology or intuitive healing to work through that kind of stuff. Or, I want to know, what's causing that procrastination? Is it just because you don't have those little goals and you're not publicly accountable and you're not sure where you're heading? Do you know what's at the base of that?
I think it's fear of change. So, but I am in the process of making a lot of changes. I'm just going to graduate from grad school for teaching, and I'm going to be pursuing a teaching job. I'm actually working in the profession now as a substitute teacher, and I just have fear of changing things, of jumping in. But part of the reason I got the books was to help me with the goal setting and kind of breaking it down, and just instead of thinking of it overall, I think that's what makes it so fearful, just to break it down into little goals. The first one was to get through school. Now, in June, it will be to pursue the employment. I mean, actually, before June, I'll start doing that. So, but I know it's fear.
Yeah. So, if it's counseling, life coaching, all of those things, I'm such a huge proponent of it because I know that there's absolutely no way that I would have achieved what I've achieved and as quickly as I have. We were looking at how much I've created, and I think I've written the equivalent of 15 books in the last 11 years. And the reason I get stuck just as much as everybody else, but I don't stay stuck. And it's because I'm okay, I don't want to be stuck. What do I need to do to fix this? And so I'll very, very willingly go to therapy, get kinesiology, go to intuitive healing, whatever it takes in order to shift it. And if one thing isn't shifting it, I'll try something else, because there's no, the most boring fucking thing on earth is to be stuck, I think.
Oh, all right, good. I'll look into those different things, and just I'm going to use the tools I have with the different goals and stuff, and just try and keep moving, even though I do procrastinate. So maybe this will help. But thanks for the suggestion of the other tools.
So, Nancy, I have another thought.
Sure.
So, I think for me, a lot of times, the other end of the spectrum is, it feels like we're in this safe place, right? And so we're gonna do this other thing, and then it's gonna become unsafe, right? So if change occurs, then that's like, oh dear, something might get broken, right? Like I'm okay right now, but I think if you can also project what can go right. What happens if you don't change and you miss out on something really cool? Or if you don't meet these goals, and like in your case, you've done all this work, right? And so if you don't actually meet your goals, then that means you've not just wasted like this time or this year, but like that actually has an impact. It's just, man, an investment that I made 5 years ago or that I made 3 years ago, like that investment is worth less to me because I didn't also get this other piece done.
Right.
So,
yeah, that's a great point.
I would almost encourage you to just sit down like with a journal or a piece of paper or whatever you're comfortable with and do two things. I mean, one is imagine a good future that comes out of this change. And just like where's your life? Where are you in a year? What happens, right? You go through this process, you get a job, you have an opportunity to pursue something that you love, you have more stability, maybe there's some financial or benefit impacts that come with that, whatever those are, right? And then I'd write another scenario, which is what happens if I don't get this done? Like, because you have this false equivalency in your mind that's like, safety or change. And, that's true, except it may be that you're sitting on quicksand. So maybe like change is a requirement and actually the safety is in the change, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's so positive.
Like you're sitting on this, riverbank and the bottom's eroding underneath you, and someday that thing's going to cave in. How long are you going to sit there?
Right.
It's like, well, no, I don't want to be in that picture. Right? I'd rather be in that other picture that I said, hey, in a year I've got a job and I'm engaged with the classroom and I'm changing lives and, I'm doing what I sort of came here for and I did all this educational investment. Now I'm taking advantage of that. That's the few. I don't want to fall in the river, and this bank finally caves in. I want to be in that. I want to be in that thing, So in reality, it's like you're leaping out of something that maybe not as positive as what you're leaping toward. Just like imagine both of those scenarios a little bit more and make your mind go through some of the exercise to say, what's really at stake here? And then like, what if I never moved? And what if 5 years from now or 10 years, where am I then? Like, what am I doing? Right? Because I think that's like a temporary fog. And when you really look at those two choices with clarity, you'll put yourself in gear.
Wow, that's really helpful. And the truth is, I haven't been procrastinating with the steps I've been taking since I decided to go back to grad school. So even me continuing to say that it's fear and procrastination, maybe that used to be true, but it's not so true as it used to be. And making those two lists would be helpful. So that's a great suggestion.
Maybe catching up with a real picture of yourself that owns your strengths and owns the work that you've done and owns the challenges that you've faced and successfully navigated.
Right.
That you can really look at that and say, here's a risk. To Leonie's point, it's a risk for all of us, right? And so,
right.
So you've procrastinated long enough, and if you're headed back down that alley, like get yourself out of it.
Right. And you just using the books, that will be my help to prevent me from procrastinating. I have the diary and then the workbooks. Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad that I stayed and listened. And thank you so much, and thanks for the books. I really appreciate them.